All right, and we are on live. Welcome, everybody. And I have Jonathan Royle with me. I'm going to introduce him in just a little bit. I'm going to just wait a few minutes for more people to join. And I see that Liam Jax has joined us. Thank you, Liam, for joining us. I'm glad you're here. I think you're here. He says that Facebook or my tablet on this Wi-Fi won't let me watch. It freezes. Oh no. Okay. Well, I'll contact you after the show and I'll help you figure that out, Liam. So let's see if there's anyone else. So it seems like we have one person. I'm just going to wait for a couple of more people. JJ, Nick Ramos. Hi. He says hi, Stephanie and Jonathan. Well, welcome to the show. And as I was explaining to Jonathan earlier, this is not like a formal, everybody's doing these like really formal interviews. This is just more like chatting with an old friend, talking shop, that kind of thing. So just, just feel free to join in the conversation, ask your questions. Feel free to, if you don't agree with anything that we say, feel free to give your opinion. So we're just going to have a good time. Hi, Julie. Good. And can everybody hear me okay? Can everybody hear? I have this little microphone here, but I don't know how well it's picking me up. So if you can hear me okay, just put in the comments, yes, or I can hear you or something like that. And that would help me out.
And if you can hear me okay as well, that would be really useful to know.
So it seems like lately I've been doing these interviews with a lot of British hypnotists. I love you guys, and I think that right over there in Great Britain, I think you're at the cutting edge, the leading edge of hypnosis, of modern hypnosis today. So I'm just really fascinating.
Sorry, that's one of the funniest things I've ever heard, Stephanie.
Okay, great. So and if that's not your thoughts on it, I would like to know what it is.
Nothing cutting edge. There's been nothing cutting edge in the world of hypnosis since about 1800.
Maybe what I'm thinking is that maybe I feel like it's more accepting over there than it is in America. I think there's still a lot of pushback here in the States of hypnosis in general. And I think you guys are just more open and accepting towards the modality and maybe even any kind of alternative health. I mean, we definitely have some areas in our country that like California or the West Coast, but I would say that the majority of America right now still kind of sees hypnosis in this light that it is not what it actually is. They have that old perception of it that hypnosis is what they see in cartoons or in movies, and so they're sort of afraid of it.
Good.
Okay. Yeah.
I love people who are afraid of hypnosis, and you know what? I genuinely believe that aside from the fact I say hypnosis doesn't exist, on the other hand, which sounds kind of contradictory, it does exist, but only in the mind of people who believe it does. So therefore, if they believe it's like they see on cartoons, Scooby-Doo hypnotising the villain, or the other way around, or on films such as Svengali hypnotising the damsel to be a singer, then if that's what they believe it to be, then arguably that is what it is. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that hypnotherapists especially make, no offence intended, is that they'll often get clients come along, and because of the way they've been trained to tell people that hypnotherapy is incredibly different than stage hypnosis or what you've seen in films, they give away a lot of the power. So when a client might say, you're not going to make me run around like a chicken, are you? And they'll turn around and go, no, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. Where in truth, the client was asking that because they want you to say, if only at an unconscious level, they want you to say, yes, I could make you run around like a chicken. Yes, I do have that power. Yes, you're correct in what you think hypnosis is, but in a way that they're reassured that you're not going to do that. So what I always say to them is, yeah, we can make you run around like a chicken if you want, but you've only paid for an hour of my time.
Yeah.
So if you want to do the chicken stuff, that's going to be another 15 minutes or so. We'll need some more money. It's up to you. Do you want to pay some more money, or do you want to get on with becoming the confident, happy, healthy, relaxed non-smoker that you've come? for the session
I
for today or
agree.
whatever.
Yeah, so there needs to be a balance where we're removing, removing the fear without removing the power of the hypnosis or the power of the mind. So there's got to be that balance in doing that. Like, how do we keep the effectiveness of the hypnosis without removing, but still kind of help the client feel comfortable remove that fear?
And by doing, as I've just said in that example, in their head concretes this idea. Everyone wants to think they're correct in things they think. They don't want to be told they're wrong. So if you start off a therapeutic interaction, a therapeutic session, telling them what they think about hypnosis is wrong, you're actually making it harder to create the level of rapport that you need for a good session. Plus, you're taking away a large element of your power. Whereas if you say to them, yes, I could make you do that chicken stuff, but you need to pay me more money because it's going to take an hour. You've only paid for an hour for this therapeutic intervention. Then to them it says, you could do it, but you're not going to do it. So they feel safe that you're not going to make them do it, but they believe that they were right in what they thought, which helps them relax.
I love that, and it just makes the hypnosis that much more powerful because you're using their own belief system, which is what we're supposed to be doing.
Precisely, yeah. I mean, that's the key. At the end of that, I say hypnosis exists only in the mind of the believer. Now, if you even believe that to be true to even a small element, then surely our main emphasis, everything we do, from the moment we're advertising through to them coming through the consulting room door, through the set, every single thing should be geared up to take what they're likely to be thinking in their head, confirm to them what they thought was correct, so that they feel good about themselves and good about it and relax, and the guard goes down, and arguably that makes it easier to bypass the critical faculty if you believe in that construct. And then to basically any cliches that the client thinks about hypnosis, it's my belief you shouldn't be saying, no, it's not like that. You should be working with it. So if they expect a swinging watch, pull the swinging watch out of your drawer and get them to fixate on it.
Yes, I agree. I'm in total agreement with you there. So there's no disputes for me. Let's see what we do have people joining us now.
Hello, Richard
Non-Guard and Julie Smith. Thanks, welcome, you guys. I've missed a lot of your comments. So I'm going to just go back and pick one or two out. And while I'm doing that, Jonathan, if you could just give us just a quick history of your background, who you are, what you do, why you're here, in 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm looking at my clock now, trying to do this in 5 minutes. I was born on the 13th of August, 1975. Okay, I was born on a circus, a travelling circus. My mum was a sharpshooting, whip cracking, knife throwing, Wild West cowgirl. That's awesome. My dad, a circus clown, he did a yogi act, which is like lying on beds of nails, fire eating, sticking needles through your body, all this kind of crazy stuff. I grew up doing that. From the age of 3, I was a circus clown. As I grew up, it's embarrassing. If you there's pictures of me as a little 4-year-old circus clown on my website.
Aww. And I think that's awesome. I wish I had that picture.
Magicalguru.com on the resume page. The pictures of I don't know why I put them up because they are so embarrassing. But I grew up doing that, and I learned from a very early age that quite often in the circus world, stuff that looks dangerous quite often isn't. But stuff that looks as though it's not dangerous quite often can actually be deadly if done wrong. But the illusion that the general public has is often very different than the reality. So I grew up in a world of trickery. And we also, when I was very young, my dad was involved in fairgrounds with sideshows, kind of Coney Island style, but in England. And again, I learned at an early age that fire eating is incredibly easy. Apparently walking on broken glass or walking on hot coals, it's just simple physics. You know, it's like putting a cake in a cake tin in the oven. The tin and the cake are at the same temperature, but if you press the cake with your finger, you can check how spongy or not it is, and you don't get much of a burn. In fact, you don't get one if you do it reasonably quick. But if you accidentally hit the cake tin, because it conducts temperature at a different level, although it's the same temperature, you instantly get a blister. And that's effectively what's going on with wooden coals that are burnt down. If you walk at an even pace, it's absolute codswallop. It's got nothing to do with cold, wet grass and mental stuff. That's just used, the trick is used to make people believe that the result they get, and I'm losing an ear there, that the result they get is mind over body. And that's fine, because if they get a result and it helps them change their belief system and become more positive, brilliant. So, yeah, I grew up in this background. Along the way, I spent the money I was earning on magic tricks, you know, kind of David Copperfield's type, cutting women in half, and started doing that kind of show. And it's when I was doing that, I saw a stage hypnotist performing. And I saw this stage hypnotist, and my first thought was, he just paid all those people to do that. I very quickly realised after, you know, seeing him several nights in a row that just wasn't viable. It would have cost him more to pay the people than what he was getting paid. So I quickly started thinking, there's something in this. And he was also selling self-help stuff after the show, which was interesting because by the time I was about 8, 9, rather than travelling around all through the year, my mum would only let me travel in school holidays. And my dad carried on travelling. She wanted me to go to a normal school and have a normal upbringing. Unfortunately, being the circus clown's son, meant I became the victim of bullying. So I was the odd one out.
Yeah.
And I did become a very shy, when I wasn't on stage, a very shy, insecure. And I'm sure in this day and age, I would have been diagnosed as being in severe depression with the labels that work of fiction DSM accredits things.
Yeah.
I don't know if I say that flippantly, but it's a big book of piling.
Oh, yeah, the DSM. Oh, right, yeah.
But I was definitely not feeling good. That much I will agree. And I went to the library, and where the magic books were that I was studying, right next to it is where the self-help books were. And there was a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yep. And I saw the title of this book, and I thought, that's the answer to everything. If I read that book, and I can win over the bullies at school. I'm not going to get bullied. I'll feel better. And so I got it and I read it. And let me tell you that the contents of Dale Carnegie's book, as good as they may be with interactions with adults, they don't work one iota with kids. It just, if anything, it made things worse. You know, call people by their name. You do that to a bully and keep calling them by the name, you tend to get hit more, was my rapid discovery. It's and unfortunately, a lot of people who read these self-help books, even as adults, take it too literally. They'll walk into a pub or a saloon, a bar. Call it. I've got to remember that you're over there in America and we have different words for some things. And they'll come up to the bar and they think they've read this book and they're now the winning personality, and they'll find out your name and suddenly it's Jonathan this, oh, Jonathan that. And after about 1 minute of them using your name 27 times, you just feel like punching them. It doesn't endear you to them. So people sometimes take these things a little bit too literally, I think. So perhaps it was partly me, perhaps it was partly the age of the kids. But I was looking for a solution to my problems. And ironically, sick mind fraud, a.k.a. Sigmund Freud.
Freud, got it.
Yeah, famously said that most therapists, that most therapists are merely searching for answers to their own problems. That's how they get drawn to it. And I've got to be honest, that's how I initially got drawn to sending off for a home study hypnotherapy course back in towards the end of 1988, just before I turned 14. I lied about my age because I had enough sense to know that they probably wouldn't sell me this course if I was under 18. So please forgive me, but I did lie. And I studied this home study course, which consisted of 3 audio cassette tapes. That's how long ago it was. And an A4 training manual that had the grand total of 67 sheets of paper in it. Wow. And there was an exam with it, but the exam came with it. So I've got the audio cassettes and the book there to get the answers from to fill in the exam. So I'm fairly confident I'm going to pass this when I send it back. I send it back. I paid at the time £125 sterling. And a couple of weeks later, I got sent back my membership to the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Parapsychologists. And I was a diploma-bearing, qualified hypnotherapist. Ta-da!
And parapsychologist, so they lump it in with...
They did at the time. I later bought the company off the guy who set this up, and I changed it slightly into the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Psychotherapists.
Okay.
And it was that way from the early 90s. Not to be confused with the APHP, as ripped off from me by Terence Watts in London, in England. Don't worry, I take all legal responsibility for just having blatantly said that he ripped off the APHP from me. But I do that in full confidence of the fact that I've got his order form where he took my home study course in around circa 1996, and he became a member of my APHP and then trademarked it as though he owned it a couple of years later. And we've had legal interactions in the past, but funnily enough, he tends to remain quiet now. Probably best because he knows I could have his trademark revoked. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So I became a member of the APHP, and I've got this bit of paper, and it's very much like The Wizard of Oz. Suddenly I've got this piece of paper, so I believed that if I did what I'd read in this book, well, 67 sheets of paper, and had learnt on the audio cassettes, it worked. So I went to my local newspaper, lied about my age, and walked in and kind of went, I've got a certificate here. Look, take a photograph of me holding the certificate. Because I knew that the photo helps the story. And they did. And I said to them, I will offer free therapy to your readers for the next week only. So they published this, and my phone rang off the hook. And you've got to remember, I'm only 14 at the time by the time this is happening.
You're 14.
But I said I was 18. I mean, the thing is, in my local newspaper, I was 18 for about 5 years. Why they never worked it out, I don't know. But the phone rang off the hook, and when people rang up, I said, yes, you can have a free session, but the thing is, for it to be fully effective for you, you need the backup audio recording, and that normally sells for £30 sterling. Remember, this was back in 1989, so £30 sterling, which was about, I don't know what the exchange rate was back then, but now it's about $50. It was a lot more money back in 1989.
Sure, yeah.
But I say to them, look, you can have the free session, but you've got to pay for the audio recording. Some of them hung up, saying, no, it's a scam, that. But I'd say about 2 out of 3 of them booked in. So I got not as much money as therapists in the area in England at the time were realistically charging around 40, 50, 60 pounds sterling. So I was undercutting them by half, but I was still making money, and I was only 14. And I was going out there, and I did exactly what this course told me to do. And what it told me to do was this. It basically said, find out what issue the client's got, whether it was smoking. Well, the only things it taught you how to do in the course was smoking cessation, weight loss, confidence issues, whether that was driving test nerves, stage fright, or whatever, and phobias, because that's all it supplied scripts for. And literally, it was a case of getting the client to pay the money, and it put the emphasis on that, make them make a financial commitment up front, and then get them to close their eyes. And the moment their eyes were closed, take out your script, because they'd never know that you had this script as long as they never see it. Well, I was a bit fearful they could open their eyes at any time, so I rapidly came up with the phrase, just so long as you keep your eyes tightly closed at all times, unless I say otherwise. And just so long as you continue to use your powers of intelligence, imagination, and concentration effectively, then this session will prove to be 100% successful for you. Effectively telling them, don't open your bloody eyes. So once their eyes were closed, and I'm fairly confident they're bound, as NLP would call it, bound into this idea that they've got to keep their eyes closed for it to work, I know they're not going to see the script coming out. So I take out the script, and I'd read the induction script that was there, that was a progressive muscular relaxation, tense the feet up, release them, and go through all the muscle groups. And as we know, if you tense up a muscle group, then let it go, it feels as though it's more relaxed than it was before you tensed it. Now, it may or may not be, but it feels like that, at least for a moment. And we can therefore, as hypnotists, attach our suggestion that we should let that muscle group relax now. It's as though that muscle group is becoming so limp, so loose, so relaxed, so heavy and so tired. And the client can believe that that genuine feeling of physiological tension release that they get is happening because of the words we say. And the more times we can get the client to believe that we say something, they imagine it, and then it becomes their reality, the more they become consciously fixated on that. And arguably, the critical faculty analytical area goes, pointless being here, because every time something's said and I imagine it, it becomes reality. And arguably, that is what some would say is hypnosis. So I'd read the induction, do the deepening, the classic down the staircase of relaxation, and then pull out the script relevant to what they come for, read that. And then at the end of that, take the awakening script, counting from 1 to 10. And once I got to the count of 8, I put the script back in my briefcase, because I could just about remember 9 and 10, and know that the moment they opened their eyes, there's no script there. It sounds as though I fluidly delivered this from my mind, so that they can conclude in their head logically, rationalization process in a split second, that I must have done this hundreds of times before, if not thousands. So I must really know what I'm doing. And because they paid money for it, logically, therefore, it must work for them. And when they believe that, arguably, it will do, because it's just a placebo trigger. And the success rate was basically 100%.
I love that. I love that, because you were 14 and you were doing this, and you even had the mind to think of, as long as you keep your eyes closed until I tell you to open them. I think that was pretty wonderful for somebody so young to even have that experience, even starting off with a script.
It was because of the magical background, where there's linguistic cues to trick people so that they take the object off the table you want them to do, so you can apparently read the mind. That's where I wouldn't say I was a super clever 14-year-old. It was just that I'd had that training and background from the magic and mentalism that I thought, hang on, let's create a situation here where it's in the interest of the client to keep their eyes closed, because then it will remove any fear from me of them opening their eyes and seeing me with the script. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, I've always thought, if you can structure everything you do therapeutically or entertainment-wise, but anything you do with hypnosis, if you can structure it so that you can never, ever feel as though you, the therapist or stage hypnotist, have failed, and so that the audience watching, whether that be an audience watching a stage hypnosis show or an audience of one person, the client in therapy, can never perceive that you have failed in what you were doing. So the only possible element of failure there could be is for the client or volunteers in the show to feel that they failed, and for the audience to perceive that. Then you can immediately be more confident as a stage hypnotist or a hypnotherapist, and by virtue, you will immediately transmit a conviction of it working to your clients more, because there's no fear about, are they going to go under? Well, it doesn't matter, because if they don't go under, it's their fault, because they didn't use their powers of intelligence, imagination, or concentration effectively. So they will look thick and stupid in the minds of the audience, or they'll feel that themselves. It kind of obliges them to do what you tell them to do, essentially. So I like everything stacked in favour of it working, or them feeling that anything that didn't work is their fault, not yours as the hypnotist, because then it removes any fear. I see all too often therapists going, oh, I'm worried, have I got them into a deep enough level of trance for this work? And I say, bugger to all that. There's only 2 levels of trance in my world. They're either on a stage show, they're either compliant and they do what I tell them when I tell them to do it, or they don't, in which case they got rid of. And in therapy, they either listen to what I say and never smoke again, or are able to hold a spider at the end, or whatever the relevant therapy is, or at the end they get the spider and they shit themselves. Excuse the little swear word. They get very scared. It's one or the other. There is no in between. I couldn't care less one iota what alleged level of trance they've got into, because it's my belief, and it's fine. It's fine for people to disagree with this entirely. But I found, since I started to believe that hypnosis doesn't exist, except in the mind of the believer, and since I came to the conclusion that clients come to us for one reason only, as an excuse. And the excuse for why they've not got off their backsides, off their fannies, I believe you'd call it in America, butt area. They've not got off the backside and sorted themselves out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
because they could have done.
They sort of leads. We're gonna take that way. Why do you say that hypnosis does not exist? That's a good.
Okay, there's nothing that any hypnotist has ever done under so-called hypnosis that cannot and has not been done numerous times without so-called formal hypnotic induction or trance. And there is just as many, arguably more, clinical studies that prove hypnosis doesn't exist. And before people throw in the brainwave patterns going, oh, but look, different areas are stimulated. Guess what? If you get someone to close their eyes connected to an EEG and just tell them to imagine anything, you get exactly the same brain patterns as you do going through a long-winded formal hypnotic induction, which says to me, there's nothing special whatsoever. The trouble is, too many people want to believe there's something special about hypnosis. I mean, therapists. We want the clients to believe there is, because then we can manipulate those misconceptions, the beliefs they have, to their advantage to help them get the result they want. Or rather, because I say hypnosis doesn't exist, to give them permission to change. Because the truth is, someone who stops smoking, puts out a cigarette, doesn't buy anymore, doesn't smoke anymore, they're a non-smoker. Simple as that. Someone who loses weight either starts doing more exercise or eats less calories, or a combination of both, unless there's a medical genetic disorder. That obviously can be an exception to the rule. But generally speaking, the only way you lose weight is burn off more calories than you're putting in. It doesn't get more difficult than that. If you read the book Diets Don't Work, forgotten the name of the author, but it's where Paul McKenna stole the good bits of his book, I Can Make You Thin. The only bits in that are any good were stolen from Diets Don't Work that were published in 1980, which is basically you've got to burn off more calories than you stick in. So what I'm saying is we do nothing special as stage hypnotists or therapists, in truth, and that's a hard pill to swallow. But by the same token, what we do is immensely wonderful and special, because it gives the client permission to change. What I mean by this is they could just put out a cigarette, stop smoking, say to themselves, I'm not going to smoke anymore. And after a few days, they could bump into a family member or friend and they'd say, hey, Jonathan, or whatever the name is, I notice you've not had like 5 cigarettes in that 1 hour we've been speaking outside on the street like you normally do. What's going on? And they go, well, I've stopped smoking. And the friend would say, oh, when did you do that? Oh, about a week ago. What? And you've not had any since? No. What? Why? Well, you found it that easy. Yeah. But the thing is then, what can happen is the person will say, well, why, if it was that easy, why didn't you do it sooner? And this can end up leading to relapse, because the person ends up feeling bad, because people will effectively end up telling them, however they phrase it, and I've done that the nice way, but with men are not too friendly with each other as friends in England. They go, well, you're a bloody idiot. Why didn't you do it sooner if it was that simple? And they will end up going back to smoking, so they can end up saying, oh dear, it wasn't that simple. So they can feel good about themselves again. So it doesn't work. When they come to a therapist, they can come in, we go through some important seeming ritualistic process. It really doesn't matter what it is. Tapping points that have been proven to have no effect whatsoever, because meridian therapy is rubbish. But it could be that as a ritual. It could be getting them to imagine an image of how they once were in the past and destroying it, and then seeing a bright new future in a mirror, future pace. I'm not bothered what the ritual is in the middle. It's about killing time. You can make up any mumbo jumbo you want, as long as you deliver it with conviction so the client feels you're taking it seriously and not sat there laughing at them, unless you're doing laughter yoga. Then that would obviously be a different context. They just need to be able to go through some ritual that can remove from them all self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, frustration, anger, and resentment they may have towards themselves for not having got off their arse and sorted themselves out sooner. So they can leave that room, and when they bump into people and they say, wow, you're not smoking, or wow, you're not scared of spiders anymore, or whatever it is they came for, they can go, you know what, I tried in the past to overcome it. So this is removing all blame from them. But now I've been able to do it because I went to see Stephanie, the wonderful hypnotherapist, and wow, now I can get on with my life. And at that point, the family and friends can say, Why didn't you do it sooner then? But they've got perfect protection shield of being able to say, well, I'd not heard about Stephanie, the wonderful hypnotherapist, at that point. And I had tried myself. It just didn't work. So it removes all blame, shame, guilt, and regret from them. Or as Louise Hay, author of, You Can Heal Your Life, would say, frustration, anger, resentment is the key to why people haven't yet changed. And when they can ditch that baggage, then they can make the change in a split second, whatever that may be. So we give them a focal point, an environment where they feel safe they can change, where it feels credible because of our diplomas on the wall and that bookshelf with the big psychology books on that we must have read. And, the social proof we've got on the website of people you've cured in the past. So that they can buy into this and feel safe that they can walk away, make that change for themselves. And yes, I am saying that on a conscious level, the majority of clients actually know that it's their fucking fault, excuse the language, that they're in the position they're in, and that it's down to them. We do not change them. We just act as a focal point to give them permission to change and let them leave all the baggage in the consulting room and all those negatives that could have caused them to relapse under the example I gave before. That's why I say hypnosis doesn't exist.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of Charles Tebbett saying all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You have sort of a different spin on that, saying that it actually doesn't exist. So what is your definition of hypnosis?
Anything that the client believes is hypnosis is. Simple as that. So, if they believe that you've got to swing a watch in front of their eyes and they're going to close their eyes down and be out of it like a zombie, then I say it's your responsibility as a hypnotist, whether it's for stage or therapy, to get out the swinging watch, wangle it in front of their eyes, and give them an experience where they end up feeling like a zombie. In therapy, people come with a preconceived idea that hypnosis is sleep, as in snoring, bedtime sleep. And we know it isn't as therapists. But you know what? I always aim to make the consulting room that dark and dim and that warm, and using such drawn out voice tones that are so boring with a progressive relaxation induction, that the vast majority of clients that come to me end up going to sleep and snoring. And that's great. That's what I aim for. Because at the end of the session, it means I have to clap my hands hard and they have to come out of a normal nighttime sleep type thing. And they feel wonderful because A, they feel as though they've been asleep in a zombie land, which is what they genuinely at most levels will think hypnosis is. So they will have had the experience they thought hypnosis was. Secondly, as he says in his book, and I've forgotten the name of the author, so just let me turn around 1 second.
Okay.
Because I knew it was in that cupboard behind me. Herbert Benson says in The Relaxation Response, and his follow-up book to that, Beyond the Relaxation Response, one of the greatest things for bodily healing, and Louise Hay touched upon this as well in her works, is when a person can truly, fully relax and have a quality, undisturbed sleep. And a lot of people don't get that at home because of the stresses of everyday life. In the therapeutic context, if you can get them in the dim room where it's dark, playing the winky-wanky, stereotypical, arty-farty, new age, dolphin, whale music, whatever, that they expect to hear, but that's part of the process, and you're using the rolling, hypnotic voice dragged out, like they hear in the films, that's no particular use, really, other than that's what they expect to hear, then, boom, the chances are you can get them to go to sleep. And the vast majority of my clients do. And good, great. And yeah, there's an argument to that. Well, then they won't be taking on board what you're saying, will they? Well, there's studies out there, if you believe them, that say that they would still be taking it on board anyway. But I actually don't care. Because if they think, when they wake up at the end, they've been in that zombie state, if they think they've experienced the magic, then that alone makes them a believer. And when they believe the magic wand's been waved, then arguably that is all it takes to flick that switch in the mind for them to walk out of there and be able to go, my life's changed. And, and they've got that protective shield that the reason they didn't do it before is because, you know, they did try, but they needed this wonderful therapist to help them. Oh, that's the first time that jumped up. Cannot say hypnosis does not exist. I can, and I did. The world is hypnotized by money, and this is different misunderstanding of the word, isn't it? You're using it there in the idea of people being influenced into belief systems. Hypnosis is the wrong word. Unfortunately, you know, Braid didn't want that word. He wanted it to be monoidealism. And I probably said that wrong, because I always do. But he didn't actually want it to be called hypnosis. What he wanted it to be called was slightly nearer to the truth, that there's nothing particularly special about it, unless the world's hypnotized by money. Yeah, basically you're touching on conspiracy theories here, but which are fact. That, you know, banknotes say, I promise to pay the bearer $100 or whatever, and it's supposed to be linked to gold, but there isn't that much gold in the gold reserves as has been exposed. Yes, you could argue that everything in life is a belief system, but the point is, in the context of being a stage hypnotist or a hypnotherapist, people have a very clear, misconceived idea that a hypnotist has power to make them zombified, that people on stage do things against their will. And I hate it when stage hypnotists say, I cannot make you do anything against your moral code or value. I hate it even more when therapists say that, because you know what the truth is? If you genuinely believe as a therapist you can't make people do things against their moral code or value, then it's my honest belief you're a crap therapist, and you actually don't know how to create the illusion of hypnosis to the client. Because if you can make them believe they're hypnotized, they'll give up all critical thinking and do what you tell them to do, just like a soldier on parade would. So yes, I am saying you can get people to murder people. And I'm saying that as a fact, because you know, in the past, I've a lot of my stuff, especially the stuff that crosses the boundary between alleged real hypnosis and trance illusion, has been purchased on DVD by a company called Objective Productions, which makes, amongst other things, all of the British mindbender Darren Brown, who's just recently, I believe, breaking America on Netflix. A lot of his shows were made by Objective Productions. They bought a ton of my stuff, and they've used stuff from my DVDs, word for word and action for action, in television shows that they produced. And one of the shows they produced was Darren Brown, the Assassin. You can buy this on DVD on Amazon, or it might be coming on Netflix. This is where he basically makes the mind-controlled slave, MK Ultra stuff. Is it television trickery, or can you generally do it? I'm blatantly saying that you can genuinely do it. You can make people do things against their will, but that doesn't mean that hypnosis exists as a special trance state.
I actually agree with you on that point, which I know is so controversial.
That does surprise me, but brilliant, great. I'm glad you do, because I don't get it. The point is that if you manipulate someone's state of mind to a point, you can give it labels. You can call it hypnosis. You can call it an ingrained belief system of the nature of the society we live in, so that people believe money's worth something it's not, because ultimately it's just an illusion. And there's a great set of videos called Money is Just an Illusion on YouTube that go into that subject matter immensely for anyone who's into that.
No, I think Tom Silver also did a show where
he did a slight, well, sorry, in my opinion, a very inferior copy of Darren Brown's Assassin show, and he did it after Darren's show had been out, and he did pretty much the same format, putting them in a bath of ice and all that kind of things. But he didn't do it with the set. No offense to, I love Tom to bits. I helped promote one of his events in England years back, and he is wonderful at what he does. Unfortunately, Darren Brown just got the edge when it comes to getting people to kill people with hypnosis. You know?
Yeah. So I'll talk later about my own thoughts and ideas on this. I want to hear some more from the audience who's watching, because I'm asking them to participate, so this can be a fun show.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But James Hardley wants to know why some people view you as a controversial hypnotist. Is this why they view you as that? Is this why you're considered to be the British bad boy of hypnosis? Fortunately,
and it's very after the event. If you go to a website, not now, because it'll take you a good 20 minutes to read through and watch all the videos. but there's a website, circus, as in circus, where the circus clowns, circusofthemind.net. And on there, it explains how right now, as we speak here on the 28th of March, 2018, I mentioned that for historical purposes, if people see this in years to come, I currently have 3 legal cases going, and I have several lawyers and barristers working on my behalf here in England. One of whom is currently taking a damages claim against Rupert Murdoch, the media mogul, one of the most powerful media moguls in the world. Another of them is currently working on getting my criminal conviction, which I have, overturned because I'm innocent, and that's why it will be overturned in time. It's all explained on circusofthemind.net, but briefly what it means is this: Rupert Murdoch published defamatory lies about me in 1994, where a British newspaper article in the Sun newspaper claimed that they had found women who'd been hypnotized by me against their will into believing I was their favorite film star, and that then they had sexual intercourse with me. Well, the real truth of the matter was that they'd come to see a few of my stage shows where I made women, asked women who the favourite film star was, said, "Sleep, in a few moments' time when I awaken you, you'll believe I am Brad Pitt or Mel Gibson or whoever they'd said. And the more the hypnotist ignores you, the more you'll fall madly, passionately and deeply in love with him." It's a standard skit or sketch routine that hypnotists do.
Yeah, I've seen that times.
And he's clean. He's clean in reality because there's no nudity. It's all in the minds of the audience of what could or not have gone on. And yes, all right, I did end up saying, "Sleep, in a few moments' time when you wake up, you'll believe you've just had the best night of your life until you're wide awake." So there was, and in between I did do the obligatory orgasm sketch. But they're just sketches on stage. There was no nudity. The way they wrote it up was as though women had come to them and said this had happened to them after shows. That never happened. If that had have happened, I'd have been in jail for rape, because that's what the name is when you hypnotize someone against their will.
Yeah.
And do that. That's rape. Now, they spoke allegedly to a female who gave them quotes. Yes, they did speak to a female who was supposed to tell them, and did tell them, she'd had the best consensual sexual experience of her life with the hypnotist when she was seeing him, and her fantasies had come true under hypnosis. That was the angle of the story. I know this because I was sat in the room with the female glamour model I paid money to tell these lies to the journalist. And I've still got the consent forms on file, hence we're suing for libel and defamation. Unfortunately, it's taken 20 years to get to a point where we can get this kind of overturned. And oh, by the way, my criminal conviction was nothing to do with that. It was to do with something that happened in 1998. I've never had any sexual offence charges, convictions, cautions or anything, despite what some people would like to say. Unfortunately, because of the lies Murdoch printed in 1994, all my shows got cancelled immediately because I was doing clean family shows, mainly. Oh. And obviously, you're not going to want to book the hypnotist that's just been in Britain's biggest read daily newspaper, The Sun, where it claimed that he'd done this kind of stuff. So although it wasn't true, and bookings went like that overnight. So I was advised at the time the only option I had was to either sue Murdoch, and unfortunately at the time you could not get no win, no fee lawyers for that. So the cost would have been around £100,000, about $150,000. And the truth is, in 1993, January 1993, I did not have that amount of money available in the bank. Simple as is the truth. So I could not sue him. And the trouble is, British law states that you've only got 12 months from the date of publication to sue for libel. So I was in a position where my career was screwed. Unless, as I was advised, I suddenly rebranded myself as Britain's Bad Boy of Hypnosis and started doing an X-rated show that would tie in with the perception that that newspaper article of lies had given about me. So given the choice of getting a proper job, stacking shelves in a supermarket, no disrespect to anyone who does, but, you know, I've been brought up in show business all my life, or working for myself and having to alter the nature of the act I did, I effectively got forced into doing an adults-only show through lies printed by Rupert Murdoch's newspaper.
Crazy.
And this caused a roller coaster effect, because then I did have people simulating sex with sex dolls on stage. I did do routines where somebody thought they were being molested by Michael Jackson. I did do these kind of routines because that's what I had to do, because that's where I was getting the bookings from then. But I never actually wanted to do that. And I probably would never have gone down that road if I hadn't been lied about by Rupert Murdoch's Sun newspaper.
Crazy.
Well, this went on. It got worse, because by 1998 in England, I'd done hundreds of television. Well, I'd done hundreds of TV shows around the world in various names, because I also found a lucrative sideline as a media prankster, basically fabricating stories, made up stories, and in different names with different disguises, getting the most ridiculous stories that nobody who put into action a single functioning brain cell would ever believe. And yet convincing print media, magazines around the world, newspapers around the world, television and radio stations around the world to publish these as fact, which is where I started off my quest to show that the media around the world is a brainwashing, mass population, mind control tool to control the opinions and thoughts of the mass populace. There's actually next to no truth in anything you read in newspapers or see on TV, is my experience from the inside. But they got wind that I was going to expose that I'd done all this, and that would have been really bad for Rupert Murdoch's empire, especially because there was a person by then called the fake Sheikh Mazza Mahmood in England, who's famous for getting royalty and MPs and stuff, and basically stitching them up, printing stories saying they've said things that they've either not said, or taking what they said completely out of context, printing a story that makes them look like a criminal when they actually didn't do anything criminal, or they did but they didn't know they were doing it. You'd have to look at circusofthemind.net to fully comprehend that, because BBC in England did a show called Panorama exposing the illegal techniques of Mazza Mahmood, but they didn't do that until 2014. In 1998, Mazza Mahmood exposed me, but I was trying to expose him. But they're very protective when they're about to lose their career, funnily enough, undercover journalists, especially when they're employed by Rupert Murdoch. And they've, again, published complete lies about me. According to the News of the World, which was the biggest read newspaper in England, and arguably one of the biggest read in the world, according to them and their article of March 1998, I was a drug smuggling, counterfeit money supplying, Uzi machine gun salesman pimp of underage girls.
Wow, that's quite some claims there.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing: if even a fraction of that was true, I'd still be in prison now.
Sure. And do you think that all of this media exposure, though, has helped you, has helped sort of your fame? I think Madonna or somebody said, I don't care if they love me or if they hate me as long as they see me, right? As long as I'm in the media.
Well, they say that there's no such thing as bad publicity, but I can tell you that when you get labelled as a pimp of underage girls, that is bad publicity you do not
That's not publicity you want.
And that's part of what the damages claim is at the minute, because the simple fact is I never got charged, cautioned, reprimanded, or anything about anything that story claimed I'd done, other than in having in my possession for the grand total of 5 minutes, 1,000 counterfeit pound coins. But the way Mazza Mahmood operated, and you've got to remember, I knew who he was. This is fully explained at circusofthemind.net. And when it got to the Crown Court in England, the judge, based on the evidence he saw from myself, and because I was secret recording Mazza Mahmood, based on the evidence I supplied, the judge in court clearly stated that he knew I was trying to expose the illegal tactics of Mazza Mahmood. Unfortunately, because I wasn't a fully paid member of the National Union of Journalists at the time, I wasn't afforded what they call journalistic license. Mazza Mahmood was. Oh. So the fact that he apparently bought counterfeit money, which is illegal, because he was an NUJ card carrying member at the time, he didn't get any charges for that. Because I didn't have a current valid membership of the National Union of Journalists, despite the fact I proved to the judge and the police and the CPS and everyone who all admitted in court, in open court, it's a matter of record, that people who actually like things like the truth and facts rather than the lies people spread about me, it's out there to be found quite clearly that the judge said, we've seen the evidence, you knew who he was, and you knew those coins would never get into public circulation and they would get given to the police. And if you had an NUJ card membership at the time, this would never have come to court. But unfortunately for me, I wasn't an NUJ member, so it did go to court. And on a technicality, I got sent to prison for 6 months, but they then pulled strings and I was let out after 6.5 weeks. That conviction is currently being appealed through the legal system here in England. The Criminal Cases Review Commission have been looking at that now for a couple of years. And that sounds like, why is it taking them so long? Well, it's taking so long because pretty much all of us that were lied about by Mazza Mahmood and Rupert Murdoch, all of us are appealing our cases, and it's being looked at like a class action. So it's not just me they're dealing with. They're dealing with Herbie Hydes, the world heavyweight boxer. They're dealing with film stars and television stars. In fact, I'm the person who's least famous on the list, to be honest, that's being dealt with. But it is pretty much assert that my conviction should be overturned within the next 12 to 18 months, and that then I should get a sizable damages. But I'm genuinely not bothered about getting money off Murdoch. I just want that apology in court so that the people who lie about me on the internet are going to have to go, it's been proven now that he isn't a drug smuggling, counterfeit money supplying, who's a gun salesman, pimp of underage girls. Well, actually, that was proven in 1998, and all the evidence of that's on circusofthemind.net. So to answer the original question, sorry, I digress. Do I think the publicity's helped my career? On the one hand, in terms of the controversial side of it, yes. On the other hand, I always say to people, do what I say, not what I do. And what I say would advise anyone is, it is far easier to build a consistently profitable long-term career by being a clean comedy stage hypnotist, by being a non-controversial therapy practitioner. It is true that if you've got the balls and the skin as thick as a rhino to put up with the grief you will get, ironically largely off other members of the industry who should know better, that there is more money to be made from the controversial side of things in the short term, I would say. And by short term, I mean my career's now been going on since I was 14, and I'm fast approaching 44. And your career is
still going on good and strong. So that's...
It is, just about, but I genuinely do believe that, at the time that Mazza Mahmood lied about me, which was the second time that Rupert Murdoch's papers lied about me, at that time I had a regular presenting slot on children's Nickelodeon television, which, not surprisingly, I immediately lost when that article went in the news of the world. I had a number of very high-profile corporate clients that I regularly did shows for, who, oddly enough, didn't want to be connected to the alleged drug smuggling, counterfeit money supplying, user gun salesman pimp, as you can understand where they were coming from. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I would advise anyone else. I mean, it actually became out of my control because at the end of the day, it's Rupert Murdoch and Mazza Mahmood, the journalist and newspaper, that lied about me. So I was forced into a position of survival. And to survive, I had to become this British bad boy of hypnosis. Okay. So yes, I did then generate stories myself where I paid glamour models to go to, famously, and it's on circusofthemind.net, the Discovery Channel have shown this program in the past called The Dark Side of Stage Hypnosis. It alleges that I sent that they got hold of a videotape of me having sex with a lady under hypnosis. And yes, they did get hold of the videotape. What they don't tell you is that I gave them that tape. What they don't tell you is, because it doesn't make for sensational TV, is that I also gave them a copy of the consent form I had from the glamour model who I paid money to make that short video clip. a short video clip that actually did not involve any sexual intercourse at all. It was just simulated to create this video clip that could be released to the media so that they could slag me off, but that would create more demand for my apparently X-rated hypnosis shows in the nightclubs and venues that were booking me at the time.
Fascinating. You have such a fascinating background and an interesting history. But I do want to go ahead now and bring it back to hypnosis for the people who are viewing. So what hypnosis, well, since you, whether you believe it exists or doesn't exist, what is I don't know, give me your number one tip that you would like to give other hypnotists or clinical hypnotherapists that you feel like could help them in some way.
Okay, but I don't think I could narrow that down to one tip. So here's a few of the main ones that come off the top of my head. Yeah. And you can use these, whether it's stage or therapy, it really doesn't matter. I read the Green Book, Dave Alman's Green Book. I know there's some blue covers, but Hypnotherapy, yeah, many years ago. And in there, he goes on about people going into the emergency room, and he'll say to them, what's your favourite sport or pastime? And the person says, tennis. And he goes, fine, close your eyes. Imagine playing tennis in your mind's eye. And just so long as you keep playing tennis in your mind's eye, you notice you feel no discomfort whatsoever as that just fades away. And it gives an example roughly along those lines. Maybe not word perfect, that, but... And also, he later in that book, that tip was one of two things I got out of that book. There's two good things in that book. The rest of it's padding. The other thing is that...
Let's back up. So what was the tip from that example?
The tip from that is that basically don't waste your time reading all of Dave Alman's Green Book. That technique, there you go, I've just told it you. The second one that's actually of any worth in that book is the control panel in the mind thing, for turning the muscles off to the eyes. So the idea that you get the client to close their eyes and you say, I'd like you to just imagine in your mind's eye, it's almost as if. Now, I add in the phrase, it's almost as if, before I tell a client or a person on stage to do anything. Because if they're not a very visual person, or they're not, or if they don't have the experience that in their heads they thought they should have, if you say to them before it's almost as if, and then put your command or suggestion in, then it doesn't matter how they experience it. They will come to the rational conclusion that the way they experienced it was correct, because it's almost as if. So I was going, it's almost as if in your mind's eye you can see a control room, and inside that control room in your mind's eye you can walk into that calm, safe and secure room. And I regularly throw in the phrase calm, safe and secure, because you don't know. This person might have come to stop smoking, but they got locked in a room once. We don't want to trigger off other negative things. So it's almost as if you can go into that control room in your mind's eye in a way that's calm, safe and secure for you. And as you go in that, it's almost as if you can see a control panel, and you might see buttons, dials, sliders or switches. Whatever feels right for you is perfect for you. And in your mind's eye, I'd like you to imagine finding the switch or the dial or the button that controls all the little muscle groups around your eyes. And when you find that, just flick the switch or press the button or pull the slider down. Whatever it is you know you need to do right now to turn off all that power and energy to all the little muscle groups around your eyelids. And when you know you've done that correctly, when you know you've done that positively and right for you, just nod your head. And I wait for them to nod their head. Because effectively they're saying when they nod their head that when you tell them to try and open their eyes, they won't do, because they've said to you they've done it right and they don't want to prove themselves wrong. So you put them in that mind. So then you say to them, fantastic. So now you've done that correctly. Just prove to yourself you've done that correctly. And just take a few moments to prove to yourself how wonderfully you've used your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration. It's like reminding them, if you open your eyes in a minute, you're thick and stupid. So prove to yourself how wonderfully you've done this and just try and open your eyes. And we know that's got MLQA's law of reversed effort in there, what resist, persist as well. But I think the key is that we've told them, turn off the power till you know you've done it right. Now prove to yourself you've done it right. People want to prove they've done things right for themselves. I like the wording of
that. I like the way.
So then they can't open their eyelids. Well, I learned that from Dave Alman's book. Yeah. And then I realised, you know what? I know I've tweaked the wording slightly. If you compare it, I think I've improved it slightly. You can use that exact same technique for everything. If you want to do street hypnosis, get them to put the hand on the wall and go, close your eyes. Imagine turning off the power to your hand. So, in fact, no. Imagine in your mind's eye finding the switch that controls the magnet in your hand that magnetizes your hand to the wall. And in a way that feels right for you, it's almost as if you can flick that switch, turn up that dial, whatever's right for you in your mind's eye. And when you know you've done that right, just nod your head. And when they nod their head, arguably, we've got critical faculty bypass. Arguably, if you believe in that construct, we've gone down to the unconscious, subconscious mind, and they've agreed that it will become their reality. So when we say to them, just try to remove your hand from the wall as you do, the stronger that magnet gets, prove to yourself you've done it right, they'll go, I can't get my hand away. Or it could be their foot to the floor, or it could be they've forgotten the name. You can do an entire show with this one technique. And the beauty is, because you don't have to go through a formal trance induction, there's no resistance. And because of the context of it, them proving to themselves they've done it right, it can never fail in the eyes of the audience or the client, because the reason it didn't work, if it doesn't work, is it's their fault. That's one of the major tips, I'd say. And that, yes, the IIC syndrome. Just so long as you use your powers of intelligence, imagination, and concentration effectively, then XYZ will prove to be 1,000,000% beneficial for you. Deciphered, what we've said is, if you don't stop smoking, or you don't lose weight, or you don't become Elvis Presley in a minute when the music starts, you're thick and stupid and you'll look daft in front of the audience, or you can feel bad about yourself, therapeutically speaking. But the people have come to you for therapy to leave that baggage behind so they can leave all that self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, frustration, anger and resentment, walk away and go, wow, this therapist has helped me. And then nobody can point the finger saying, why didn't you do it sooner? They could have always done it sooner for themselves, but they needed permission to change, an excuse to change, and a safe environment, namely the therapeutic room, to change. And on a stage show, I swear blind, that one of two things happens after a stage show. Well, sorry, one of three. Either the people say, oh, I can't remember anything. And you know what those people are doing? They're being what I call attention-seeking fuckwits. ASFWs. In other words, they went up there because it was great for their ego, and they had the perfect excuse of being able to say, I couldn't stop myself, the hypnotist made me do it. When they come off stage, they go, I can't remember anything, because then that encourages their friends to go, oh, you were really hypnotized. He made you do this, he made you do that. You were wonderful. Everyone was laughing. And it's really good for their ego, and it makes them feel good. And there's no blame, shame, guilt, or regret to them.
This is where I'm kind of disagreeing with you here now, because...
That's fine, just a minute. Option two is that the people come off stage and they say,
you have amnesia.
I remember things.
And they're scared that they have amnesia, that they can't remember.
Okay, well, that can happen, but they're being an attention seeker. So they either forget they're being attention seeking to get more attention, or they come off and they say, I can remember, but I just couldn't stop myself. But again, it means that everyone says to them, well, you might not be able to stop yourself, but you mean you really couldn't stop yourself doing that? And they become the center of attention again. Their 5 minutes of fame is extended. Or they come off and they go, I was just playing along. It has to be one of those three. It's always one of those three. And all three of them prove that hypnosis is bollocks on stage. It's just a perfect environment for people to be able to remove all self-blame, shame, guilt, regret from themselves for having that gap within them, because they don't, from their normal everyday life, feel that they are loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, or valued enough, that they want to feel they've got that 5 minutes of fame. That's why people who know they can't sing get up on karaoke, because they want a round of applause, even though they know they can't sing, because it makes them, for a few moments at least, feel special, feel loved, wanted, and all those things.
So what about people who come to you in a therapeutic environment, and let's say they want to stop smoking, and you get rid of their cravings via hypnosis, right, or NLP or whatever, right there in the office? This is not something they could do for themselves.
Yes, of course they could.
Rid of cravings, right?
Yeah, of course they could. If they wanted to, they could, yeah. The cravings are nothing more than the conscious mind's excuse, allegedly triggered by the unconscious mind, but excuse for not turning around and going, I'm not having it. Basically, we do nothing magical. we create an environment where they can justify to themselves. We've given them more willpower to be able to say, no, thank you, I don't smoke, or to handle that craving better. But it's cobblers. At the end of the day, they could have always done it for themselves. There's nothing we do that's special.
But what about help motivating them to get to that point, of diet, to get to that point of exercise?
They've already got to that point by the time they come. If they come spending money, unless you're not charging enough, that is. If you're charging a pittance and you're one of the lowest charging therapists in your area, you likely will get people coming along that the husband or wife has said to them, go and try this then, right? And they think, sod it, I'll go and I'll spend me $100 and I can walk away and go back to the missus and go, well, I tried it, but it didn't work. So they stop the earache from the missus and they can blame it on the therapy not having worked. If you charge enough, Law, you tend to price out those idiots.
I agree.
And then you get the people who've already decided deep down, it may be at an unconscious level, but they've decided time for change. But I believe that deep down they also realise within themselves that they could do it themselves, but everyone will suddenly start saying to them, why didn't you do it sooner then? And it'll make them feel bad. Whereas if they come to a therapist, all that blame, shame, guilt, regret, all of those negative things are left in the therapist room. That's all we do.
Tell me again what you're blame, shame. You said that there are 7 constructs.
Well, there's 2 levels of this. What we help them leave behind in the consulting room is any negative feelings of self-blame,
shame,
guilt, regret.
What was that one?
So it's blame, shame, guilt, regret, and then the last 3 are what Louise Hay said: frustration, anger, resentment.
Frustration, anger, and resentment. Okay, but those have to be replaced, right? So we're removing that, but are we replacing it with something positive as well?
Well, no, because actually we don't need to replace that.
Confidence or motivation.
Well, that happens naturally. Because like I said, with the relaxation response, people don't tend to get that time where they feel special and the centre of attention. If we give them that time and the important seeming ritualistic process, that in itself makes the client feel special and therefore feel as though they have a sense of feeling loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued. Now, they sound all very similar, but if you get a dictionary and read the meanings of them, you'll see that they all mean very different things. Mm-hmm. Any client that comes to you with an issue of any nature, is my belief, has got an imbalance in one or more of those 7 areas. They don't feel fully loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished or valued. There might be an imbalance in all of them or just some of them. But because of that, as a knock-on effect, it will have taken a negative effect on their self-confidence, their self-image, their self-esteem, and their self-control, aka willpower, which come under the umbrella of self-worth.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they come to us, we give them the environment where they can go, right, I'm going to do what I could have always done for myself, but I can leave here and feel proud. Nobody can point the finger. So all that self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, frustration, anger, and resentment can be left behind.
It just sort of takes the onus off of them.
They can then also have this wonderful hour where they feel wonderfully relaxed because, as I say, everything's focused on getting them to do real sleep, so they feel they've had that magical zombie moment. And if they don't go into a real sleep, I use lots of physiological tricks with what I do so that they feel that something unusual has happened to them. So they come to the rationalized conclusion that that something unusual must be what hypnosis feels like. And when they tell themselves they felt there's something special, that means they believe they felt there's something special and they become that believer because hypnosis exists only in the mind of the believer. So at that point,
and then so they change their own reality.
Yeah. And I suppose you could argue that now, because of having that hour or longer, maybe targeted time where they feel safe and secure, and it's all about them, that does make them feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued. So when those things are built up, that helps increase their self-confidence, the self-image, the self-esteem, the self-control, which is willpower, which logically then leads to them being in a better position to deal with whatever it is that used to bother them in the past when they came to you.
Sure. So do you feel like, besides all of that you just listed for us, do you feel like there is what we call a subconscious, that there is this stuff operating below the level of conscious awareness that people just haven't tapped into?
Possibly, but here's the thing. There's nobody on this planet that can prove it one way or the other for sure. And the chances are they never will. As a construct, it's one that seems very safe and comfortable and seems to make sense. Also, you know, using the analogy as many therapists do of the mind being a personal laptop computer and the conscious mind's here, and the unconscious mind is like the memory hard drive of the computer, and we've got to reprogram it. It's a great way of it sounding credible to the client. I think largely in truth that there must be something more going on, but the truth is I don't believe that anybody truly knows what that something more is, and neither do I feel that they ever will.
The brain is so complex, and even the best neuroscientists in the world haven't figured out the brain, correct?
The only thing I have concluded is, looking into all these studies of what is the brain, what isn't, is that one of the most powerful things that affects our brain, and therefore us as human beings, is what a lot of people look at this word I'm about to say, well, this phrase, negatively. And they shouldn't, because it's the most wonderful thing for us therapists, and that's the placebo effect. It's the most wonderful thing. I mean, as recently as January this year, 2018, triple-blind clinical studies have been done using placebo, but open-label placebos. The people being given them actually know they're a placebo, okay? And they've done triple-blind studies and shown that cancer patients, the side effects of chemotherapy, dramatically an open label placebo where they know it's effectively a worthless pill dramatically helps them overcome the side effects of chemotherapy. And if you start studying the placebo and look into the work especially of Irving Kirsch and his book The Emperor's New Drugs, he obliterates the antidepressant industry and shows that all the clinical studies that apparently show that antidepressants work actually have been fudged, manipulated, and lied about. He exposes it fully and shows the actual only worth of antidepressant is placebo. But that's great because, you know, antidepressants do apparently get results, which means that placebo, because that's all they are, is positively helping people change their lives. And when you accept that the placebo can be a positive thing, I think that then you can harness it to make the experience of what we do as therapists that much the better. You know, I that's why I have in my consulting room loads of thick psychology books on the shelf behind me. I've never read them. I just bought them secondhand off Amazon for a few dollars each, so they look impressive. So the client sees them and goes, wow, if he's read all them, he's a super brainy guy. This person really must know what they're doing. And it puts them into the belief mindset. It triggers, it's the placebo that triggers them. I mean, I do tell my clients hypnosis doesn't exist. So arguably, I'm operating with an open label placebo, but they're clinically proven to work. And the fact is I offer a money-back guarantee to my clients. And I've had 2 people since I was 14 ever ask for the money back. So, and I believe that all I'm doing is triggering a placebo. You know, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong about what my career has been based on. And maybe what I've taught thousands upon thousands of people around the world, including television name, hypnotists and life coaches. And that I still advise some of the biggest names in this industry. I mean, people more famous than me come to me for coaching, which is mental bonkers. What I've taught them is exactly what I've been saying during this. There's no like hidden secret. It's just placebo. It's bullshit. If we can make the person believe that what we're doing is what they expect hypnosis to be, then for them, hypnosis will exist in that moment. And when it exists for them, then they can make a change as quickly as that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. So, Jonathan, what are you doing now? What's your next move? What are you teaching? Are you doing therapy? Are you doing stage shows? What's going on now? And what do you have coming up in the works for Jonathan Royle?
I'm still keeping my hand in, so to speak. So I do a few shows, mainly corporate ones a year. And the reason for that is I've been playing bold and simple. I'm in this business to make money. And the corporate shows pay more. Simple as. I still do see some therapy clients. When the therapy client comes to me and says they will pay my fee, and on my website it says prices are from £500 sterling. Now, current exchange rate, I think that's about $750 to put it in perspective. Now, there's people out there charging more, but in England, trust me, I'm one of the dearest therapists there is in England. Most of them are charging between 60 to 150 quid. But even the majority of them that come to me, I don't even see them. I just send them to one of my students. I pocket a couple of £100 for doing nothing, and they make more than they would have done getting the client themselves. And my job's just been done creating that belief factor in advance, because if someone comes and is prepared to hand over that money up front, which I always insist on them doing, they've already decided they're going to change. They've already decided it's going to work. They just need that excuse and permission to change. So yeah, I'm doing a bit of it, but to be honest, seeing clients one-to-one, I did it for so many years, 40, 50 clients a week back in the 90s, that it bores me crazy. You do really want to see people who I know deep down, I believe, could just get off their ass and sort themselves out. Why don't they just, go and spend £100 somewhere or hide it so that the wife thinks they've spent it on seeing a therapist, lie, say they've seen a therapist, and then just stop smoking. They could do. It's a good job that they don't think of that, because otherwise we'd all be out of business. But that is truly where my head is at. So yeah, I teach other people how to be successful in their businesses mainly at the minute, how to make more money, how to do group therapy sessions, how to have the confidence themselves to charge more money. That's the biggest stumbling block most therapists have. I
agree. Yeah.
And what they do is they go off learning new techniques that they think, well, this technique, if I can find the technique that will work 100% of the time with 100% of the clients, then I'll be able to book my prices up. No. Because there is no technique that works 100% of the time with 100% of the clients, unless you ensure you only get clients in front of you that are fully committed, ready for change, and are in that right state of mind. Then it doesn't matter what the technique is, it will work for them. And I've tested this to the extremes in the past and I've done this at events and with clients, literally getting them to stick sticks of celery up their nostrils, so it's stuck out, one up each, and to slap themselves on meridian points on the face. Well, I tell them they're doing that. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just amusing me inwardly. And at the end of it, we do the sensory units of distress scale. At the beginning, we did it, and they were at number 8, saying at the end, they're down to 0. So they're convinced the problem's gone. It amuses me, but it also proves to me that it's cobblers. It's just placebo. It's an important, seeming ritualistic process. Which, you know what? I know I'm going off on one, but it reminds me, massive tip for everyone. This is a little trick I've developed. SUDS, sensory units of distress scale. What it means is, watch what I do with my hands. At the start of the session, you say to the client, let's imagine that they're scared of spiders. And you show them a picture of a spider and they go, ah! And you go, okay, on a scale of 0 down here being nothing and up there being 10, the worst it's ever been in the past, really bad, like pulling your hair out, really, really, really bad. How high up is that number right now? And they give a high number. And then you do whatever important seeming ritual you want. I often get them to tap here 3 times and then tap just below, that's the psychic third eye area 3 times, then the base chakra just below the belly button 3 times, then 3 times there, 3 times there, 3 times on the top lip, and then we hum happy birthday, and we do that 3 times. And the way I remember it is, because it's got nothing to do with meridians, I remember it as spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch. I can't believe I'm saying this, and they're paying me for it. It's my birthday. And that's how I remember what order to get them to tap, because it's got nothing to do with meridians. But I get them to do this important seeming ritualistic process they can buy into, and it seems credible because the expert, me, the hypnotist, has told them to do it with a straight face. And then at the end I say, close your eyes, just try, Emil Kuhn's law of reversed effort, just try to get a sense and a feeling of what it used to be like in the past. Disassociation. Now open your eyes, and on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 up here being the worst it ever used to be in the past, and 0 down here, nothing, gone completely. Where much lower now is that number? And I guarantee they give a lower number. Sometimes you have to do it a couple of times again to get it down to 0. But the reason they do is not because of what we did in the middle. That doesn't matter. is because of this suds trick, where at the beginning, I physically say to them, look, down here is 0, up here is number 10, the worst it ever was in the past, like pulling your hair out really, really bad. And I'm pointing upwards and saying, how high is that number right now? So I'm non-verbally saying, say a high number. So they do. They'll give me a higher number than it is in reality. But that's the point of it. Mm-hmm. Whatever rubbish we do in the middle, which distracts the mind, at the end, I reverse what I did at the beginning. So I go on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 up there being the worst it ever was in the past when it used to bother you. And down here, 0, nothing, gone completely, embedded command, arguably, where much lower now is that number. And I'm pointing much, they're obliged to say a lower number. The moment they say a lower number and consciously realize that that number has changed to a lower one, they go, hang on, something's changed in me. The number's lower. And that tells the critical faculty to stop arguing about it and goes, bloody hell, there's a change been made. So you could argue, if you believe in that construct, that that process has done an eyes open trance to bypass the critical faculty. If you want to believe that, that's fine. I just believe that using the suds technique in that way, at the beginning, it's always 0 down here, no issue. Up there, 10, the worst it ever was in the past when it really used to bother you. How high up that is that number right now? Then do whatever your winky-wanky ritualistic process is in the middle.
Yeah, John Cleese calls that the pageantry.
Yeah, whatever bit in there. And then, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 down here, 10 up there, the worst it ever used to be in the past when it used to bother you, ripping your hair out. But down here, 0, nothing. Gone completely. How much lower is that number right now? You will always get a lower number, I promise you. I find that worth its weight in gold, especially when I'm doing TV or radio shows and I need to, on air, get a rapid result. Because it doesn't matter what you do in the middle if you do that trickery way of doing it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. Interesting. So I've really enjoyed having you on, and I'm sure all of us have learned a lot from you. There's definitely some gems in there. Some things I still disagree with. Some things I totally agree with. Some of the things that, even the controversial notion that you can't get someone to do what they don't want to do or against their will or belief systems in hypnosis. I do think you can do it if you're a skilled hypnotist. That's
why would the US government spend so much money on MK Ultra if,
right.
Which they did. And if you go into the declassified CIA documents, like at Olympic, they did create a mind-controlled assassin, and George Estabrooks was one of the people who helped them do that. And in his first, if you can get the first edition of his book, it was only ever in limited numbers of copies of the first edition, there was a chapter on how to create a mind-controlled assassin. They very quickly removed that from the printing, and any subsequent editions, it's not in. Yes. If you can get an original first edition, read that chapter, because I genuinely say that's exactly how you do it.
Oh, good. Find that book for me. Send it to me. I'd love to read it. Yeah, well, thank you so much. We only have a few minutes left, and if you want to let viewers know how they can find you.
Okay, well, I'll give you a ton of free stuff. If you go to, there's 3 addresses there. I'll put them on screen. The bottom one says...
You might have to read that out loud. I can't.
Okay. The bottom one is hypnosisweek.com.
Oh, that's better. Yeah.
www.hypnosisweek.com. If you go there, there are 47 step-by-step free training videos, therapeutic techniques, there's how to market yourself and make more money, the secrets of stage hypnosis, and there's therapeutic techniques as well. Free of charge for you to have a look at. If you go to the elitehypnosisbootcamp.com/free book, you can get 3 encyclopedic, basically my books that sell on Amazon. You can get them in PDF version free of charge. And if you go to the middle one, which is magicalguru.co.uk, that's magicalguru.co.uk, that is my online shopping portal. And if you go into the Hypnosis, Mentalism and Magic shop, if you want to buy anything there, when you get to the checkout, for people who are hearing this on a replay or live, if you put the discount code of WIZARD, WIZARD, in block capital letters into the shopping cart at the end, it will knock 50% off everything that's in the store.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. That's very generous.
But I'll be honest with you. If you go to elitehypnosisbootcamp.com/free book, join the mailing list and get the 3 books for free, the chances are, if there's anything you fancy in the store, once you're on the mailing list, you'll probably get an email in a couple of days or a week's time that'll offer it you with generally the discounts are around between 50 to 60% off, so you can save even more money. Or just hit me up on Facebook, facebook.com/Alex the Hypnotist. Inbox me, and I'll cut you a good deal if you mention Stephanie's podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. We have 5 minutes, so I'm just going to ask the viewers if you have anything that you'd like to say to Jonathan, any questions. Now is the time to do it.
Please try to keep it clean.
Keep it clean and short, because he does have to run. He's got some place he needs to
Sorry, I've got about 10 minutes because I found out my daughter's school play doesn't start till 6:15. So as long as I leave here at about 10 to 6, I'm fine.
Okay. So it looks like we're down to 7 viewers. We got up to about 20 or 30 earlier. And
thousands of people will see this on the replay.
Absolutely, on the replay. I mean, this is just kind of an odd time during the day when people are working anyway to be watching this live. So, and I appreciate all of my viewers for showing up and for supporting this.
Yes, thank you.
I love having these face-to-face conversations, especially talking about controversial issues in hypnosis, because we're not like mudslinging, we're not calling each other names, we're just really listening and being respectful of each other.
The key is
what we have to say.
You've just triggered in my head, Stephanie, excuse me. That's very true. People can choose to totally reject every single thing I've said, and that's fine. If what they are doing is working for them and they're happy with the results they're getting, then that's fantastic. Because the key is to have confidence and conviction in what you're doing. So that What's your thoughts on evening? It's just a fancy winky wanky title that basically means also give yourself a hug while you're at it. So it's a sensory therapy. It's a placebo. It's still just an excuse for them to leave everything behind. Everything in complementary alternative mesmerism. It's the way they're teaching it these days, it's bullshit again. It's just placebo. I mean, if you go back and study mesmerism, most of the so-called mesmeric occurrences that were happening was purely hysteria or quite often epileptic fits when you look into it in great depth and do your real study and research on mesmerism, which, believe me, I have. Mesmer was basically a glorified street hypnotist who got lucky and realised the power of the mind. And then Emile Coué came along and cut out the theatrics and realised that basically you just need to repeat things, do them in a credible context and create that environment, and that the purple robes and metal sticks weren't really required after all. It's a good way of taking hundreds of pounds off people or for a course where they'll learn absolutely nothing of use in the real world. Yeah, as is much the case with most hypnosis courses out there, I'm afraid. But, especially NLP. Why not just teach you in the first place how to do it properly? No, you do an NLP course, then you do your practitioner, master, and in fairness, I've done them. I did them. You do your practitioner, master prac, advanced, whatever, and then you do your trainers. And then most of the people who are teaching other people out there, they get the trainers, then they go out and start teaching other people when they've probably done a couple of dozen clients at best in the real world. These people shouldn't be teaching other people. It's the blind leading the blind. That's why so many people out there believe that hypnosis is something it isn't, because they're just basically going and repeating what they got taught somewhere else. And that's why there's so many. You've got me on a rant here. Just set my mind. If you've got this power called hypnosis, and that's the way you should present it to clients, you have got this power and you'll share it with them to help them change their lives, then it's something worthwhile and you can charge a lot of money for it. If you've got that power, you should be charging them a lot and it's perceived value so that they believe in it when they come to you. And thus, you should never be whinging or moaning about, you shouldn't be in a situation when you've got this power of hypnosis to be sat there treating a client thinking, how am I going to pay the mortgage at the end of this month? I hope I get more clients in. You should be in a position where you're going, No, I've got a waiting list of at least 4 or 5 months. You want to come and see me, fine, but I'm not going to see you for 4 or 5 months. I always tell my students, even when you set up in business, do not book anyone in for at least a month, because if you're any good at what you did, you wouldn't suddenly have a cancellation. You wouldn't be able to slot them in. That's a negative suggestion. You should be busy for at least a month before you can fit them into your diary.
Yeah, I actually kind of learned that myself sort of accidentally, because I got pregnant and I decided that I was just going to take a sabbatical and, you know, have this baby and just focus everything, all my concentration on the baby. Sort of took it off my business. I didn't close down the business. I just said I have a waiting list for, 3 months or whatever. All of a sudden, I got a ton of people who, wanted me now. All of a sudden, I was in demand. And I said, okay, if you can wait 3 months, I'll schedule you in.
Yeah, it's human nature.
Really
people want things more that they can't have. Yeah.
The psychology of perceived value.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a valuable take out there for anyone seeing this video. But what advice would you give someone starting out in the hypnotherapy world? Okay, I'll give you 2 answers to this. One's flippant. I'll warn you in advance. One's flippant. The other one's more serious. The flippant one is, don't bloody bother. It's full of a bunch of egotistical fuckwits who spend their life on the internet moaning about how either A, they're not making enough money, or B, this technique doesn't work the way they were told it would, or the brainwashed seminar junkies who go to course after course after course as an excuse to themselves to stop themselves going out there and being successful because they've never sorted their own bloody psychological issues out. That's the slightly flippant, although perhaps a lot more truth in it than there should be, answer. The more serious answer would be is spend the minimalist amount on learning techniques and invest your money into learning marketing, advertising, publicity and promotion to put yourself on the map. Marketing is the key to success in any business, but more so as a hypnotist because it creates your credibility factor. It creates your income stream, but it also creates your credibility factor so you can charge more and it's more likely to work for you. It triggers off the placebo. So I would say
hypnotists are entrepreneurs. I'm sorry, that's just
exactly.
If you're not a good entrepreneur, then you're not going to be able to see enough people to make a living out of this, unless you just have a really good word of mouth business.
Yeah, it depends what you want out of life. I mean, the truth is, if you market yourself in a manner where you charge $10,000 per client and you get a client a week, so you're making $480,000 a year, you only need 2 clients a month. Simple as. So it's about targeted advertising, finding what your target market is and putting your energies on that. But this is stuff, excuse the plug, but this is stuff that if you inbox me, okay, send me an email on Royle, that's Royle, so just let me 1 second, that's because some people often spell it wrong, but it's Royle, Royle.
Not A-L-L-E.
Yeah, at magicalguru.com. So it's magicalguru.com. If you email me there or send me an inbox message on Facebook through my personal profile, facebook.com/Alex the Hypnotist, I will send you a free 40-page PDF called The Royal Road to Hypnotic Success. There is free advice in there. There's free training in there, how to make money while you're asleep at night, create multiple passive streams of income. Yes, there is a plug in there to try and get you to join my Elite Hypnosis Bootcamp. I'll tell you that up front. But the bootcamp comes with a full 1 year, 365-day satisfaction money-back guarantee that you will earn at least $12,000 more by being a member of the bootcamp and operating and using what's inside there in the next 12 months while you're a member than you did in the previous 12 months before you joined. Otherwise, as stated at the link I'll send you, you get 100% of your money back. I don't think there's any other hypnosis trainer out there that's got the balls to do that.
I think that's fantastic. That's good. So they're getting a full year.
Well, no, they get lifetime membership. But at the end of the year, if they've not made at least $12,000 by putting into action...
But they have a money-back guarantee for a full year.
Yeah. As per the terms and conditions explained in the PDF. The terms and conditions essentially are that you actually... And Yes Course is a wonderful platform. When you go into something and study it, it registers that you've studied it. and how long you've studied it for. So if you were to join and then after a year go, I want my money back, and I log into Yes Course,
you haven't done anything with it.
1 hour studying stuff when there is literally hundreds of hours of videos and there's templates for your business and there's promotional tools you can use and it shows you've not downloaded them, then I'm afraid that isn't within the terms and conditions. If you actually put this, because I know if you put into action what's inside there, that it'll work, that I can have the confidence to offer a money back guarantee. And so far, only one person has ever asked for the money back, and that's because they decided, not that it didn't work, they actually said it did work for them, but they decided they weren't going to remain in this industry. And they were cheeky enough to ask for the money back. So, you know what, I respected that cheek and said, you know what, fair enough, and I gave it them back. Yeah. So you can make money in this industry. A lot of therapists I find are either scared or ashamed about the idea of getting sizable fees because they think, well, if I'm currently charging, say, $250, what do I do to justify suddenly charging $500 when what I'm doing in the session is the same? And it's a feeling they've got it within themselves. And
yeah, that's a tough one.
That's what we cover in the boot camp. It's about building up your confidence, because it's about you having the confidence to charge more. You're only worth what you believe you're worth. And when you believe you're worth a millionaire income, you will generate that in your life.
I agree with that.
You know?
Yeah, totally. That's something we could totally agree upon. Also, thank you so much, Jonathan. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you asking me. It's been fun. And thank you for those people who've been listening in live. And thank you for everyone for your comments. And the people who get this on a replay, again, thank you for actually watching it. Hopefully it'll prove to be of some value to you.
All right. Thank you. And hopefully we'll get to have you again sometime soon.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah. You take care, Stephanie. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you very much indeed.
You too, and hopefully your did you say your daughter, your son?
Yeah, it's my daughter. I'm gonna pack up here and then I'm gonna go get a taxi and go and see her play.
All right. Well, I'll make sure to break a leg.
Yeah. Goodbye, everyone. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
You see my clicks.com. Bye bye.